My mom always told me that it wasn't what I said, it was how I said it. And that's definitely true. But today, with guests Joshua and Tara Dukart, we're going to take a deeper dive into the role that body language and tone plays in our communication.
Over 90% of our communication is body language and tone. And one tip I'd like to give all the listeners, a key thing to hone in on when you are speaking with someone, always look at where your feet are pointed, because you know that you are engaged with someone who is actually listening and hearing you if both of your feet are pointed toward each other.
We'll also talk about picking the best medium for a given conversation.
There's oftentimes I will go and I will visit with a landlord, and I will go physically visit with them face to face, and a couple of our kids will be along, and they said, "Dad, why couldn't you just have that phone conversation?" And I said, this was too important. This was too valuable. And even if it wouldn't have needed to be a in-person, there was appreciation on my part and on their part.
All that and more on this, episode 401 of the Working Cows Podcast, brought to you by Farming Without the Bank.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows Podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag Studios. Very excited to be joined today by Joshua and Tara Dukart. They are, of course, with Seek First Ranch, just east of Bismarck in North Dakota. Also, they are certified holistic management educators, hosting conferences and seminars and workshops all around the area and the nation. And so if you're interested in working with them, of course, you can find links to that in the show notes page for today, workingcows.net/401. But today I wanted to pick up some conversation. Today I wanted to pick up a conversation from some bonus content with them about how our body language and our tone influences the success of our communication. And so we're going to talk to them about that right after this word from our sponsor today, Farming Without the Bank. None of you are farming like you did 100 years ago. Why are you financing it like you did 100 years ago? The biggest part of your operation is the money that runs through your hands, and you let someone else control that. The bank gets the final say in what you get money for and when you pay it back. For many, this is a great relationship, until it's not. Farming Without the Bank shows you how you can take back control of your money so that you can make the bank plan B instead of plan A. This is done by you creating your own banking system you own and control. To learn more, tune into the Farming Without the Bank podcast and go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book. Once you've read the book, Mary Jo will meet with you one-on-one and help you determine where and how to get started. She'll most likely also touch base on some estate transition ideas, financing ideas, business growth or startup ideas, and many other things she has experience with from helping thousands of farmers and ranchers like you. So go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book today and subscribe to the Farming Without the Bank podcast. Joshua, Tara, thanks for joining me again on the Working Cows podcast. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got into a little bit of a discussion last time for some bonus content that I was like, that needs to be a whole episode in itself. And the topic of that bonus content was this idea of our body language and our communication, and how there's a lot more going on in our communication than we realize, and that a lot of our physical, the way we are present physically, communicates more than maybe even what we say, or even how we say it sometimes, I think, as well. So wanted to talk to you about that today, and talk to you about some of the things you guys have going on right now as well. So we'll get started there, just kind of what is happening, what's going on right now in this season for you guys.
Looking at the big picture right now, one of the things that Tara and I really have learned to appreciate is the the seasonality of things. And of course, anytime you're in the farming and ranching industry, seasons take on a lot of different meanings. I mean, whether it's the weather or the type of jobs or activities that you're participating in during that time of year. And I'll be honest, in the past, spring was always my favorite time of year, and just new life and green grass and that sort of thing. And for Tara, being a former school teacher, summers are always really big on her list. And over time, we have really started to enjoy the fall and then the transition into winter. And the biggest reason we've really appreciated that is it seems like the pace changes. Now, it's not that there aren't jobs to do on the farm or the ranch, or things don't stay busy. Lord knows our family's plenty busy, going in lots of different directions. But the pace from a management standpoint tends to change. And one of the things that is kind of hits us from two different angles is this winter time, and we tend to call it conference season. And it's, number one, it's an opportunity for us to learn, to expand our resource base, to dig into some of the strategy things that we really need to, both personally and professionally. But it also is the time of year when we get to go travel and speak and teach and facilitate. And of course, we come back with having learned just as much as hopefully we have offered and served others. But in that time, we have noticed some things and made some observations about conference season, so to speak. It is this strategy season. There are opportunities that abound. The amount of information and knowledge that you can acquire is tremendous. And there's lots of workshops and conferences and summits, and they have all kinds of names, about the different events that you can go to. We just really get excited, especially on the front end of this particular season. Now, to illustrate, when this really starts, it's a little bit different every time of year for us, but we had an event in South Dakota here back in November, which kind of was a kickoff type of event for at least our events in the Northern Plains. Had a great 3-day event there. Clay, I think you had an opportunity here recently also with the South Dakota Grasslands Coalition to speak and interact with people. And it's just a different way of communicating. And as you said earlier, Clay, this idea of body language and tone and all those things beyond the words that we say all add or sometimes unintentionally detract from maybe what we're trying to share with people.
Yeah, I grew up in a house where my mom often told me it's not what you said, it's how you said it. And I think that even beyond that, beyond the tone of your voice, what I think really stuck out to me from that conversation as part of that bonus content that we did was it's the body language. And, we even got into things like mirror neurons and some of those things. And I think that those have been things that people have been trying to put into words for a long time. And sometimes the words get a little bit woo-woo and people get a little bit scared about, what direction are we headed here? But then we start to, as we get better at measuring things scientifically, we start to say, oh, well, there is actually something going on there. There are scientifically measurable things happening there that we can't see, but it does affect the way that we are perceived.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. When Joshua and I had the opportunity to teach a school with multiple holistic management international facilitators a year ago, and in that school, one of our participants, she and her husband were from Australia, and when she introduced herself, she said that she was studying positive psychology. And I was so fascinated by that because I hadn't really looked into what that was before. And so since then, I've been digging into it and I've really been fascinated by it. It is the concept of psychology for what drives people, what motivates people, what helps them become more resilient, because we all deal with things in our everyday lives that are challenging and are hardships, and there's a time sometimes for grieving. And so how do we rise above, and how do we focus on what are the things that we can do to keep us in a mentally healthy state? And so we have incorporated so much of that scientific research within the positive psychology realm into our schools, into our facilitation and into something that we have coming up that we're really excited about. We'll be talking about later during this podcast, our Win Warriors accountability group. But yes, over 90% of our over 90% of our communication is body language and tone. And one tip I'd like to give all the listeners, some of you may have heard this before, a key thing to hone in on when you are speaking with someone, when you're having a conversation with somebody, always look at where your feet are pointed and where the person you are speaking with, look to see where their feet are pointed. Because you know that you are engaged with in a conversation with someone who is actually listening and hearing you and is an active listener within the conversation if both of your feet are pointed toward each other. And that's something that I'm working to be more mindful of, because as a busy mom, I multitask, and I'm the first to admit that. And so I know that oftentimes in my daily life, I am multitasking, doing dishes, preparing a meal, responding to an email, while also simultaneously trying to answer my kids' questions and be present and attentive to them. And to be honest, I've got my feet pointed toward the stove while I turn my head and I answer a question, or I've got my feet pointed toward the sink or toward my laptop. And there's definitely a time and a place. But when I pause and am very intentional about where my feet are pointed, it's a subconscious thing. We are aware of it on a subconscious level, whether someone is actually giving us their full attention or whether half their brain is somewhere else. So I think just to be mindful of that quick little tip of, okay, is this a time where my feet need to be pointed toward this person and I need to be fully engaged? Or is it not? And then make that choice and then be intentional about it.
Yeah. I think that it's also one of those things that can help us pick our medium of communication, right? Like, what level of communication does this conversation warrant? Is a text message good enough? Is a phone call good enough? Is an in-person, face-to-face, not even over Zoom meeting good enough? Because those are kind of the four levels of communication, right? You got your text message, there's no tone, there's no body language, there's, I just have to guess at what your intents are. And then there's the phone call where I can at least hear the inflection in your voice. And then there's a Zoom call where I can see you. And then there's that in-person meeting where I get more of that energy that you are giving off, and that's not, I'm not being crazy or anything about that. That's just legitimately there are, we do have those kind of energies that come out. You can tell somebody's upset or angry just kind of based on a whole host of things that you maybe even don't even realize you're picking up on. So I think this conversation really helps us when we're trying to communicate ideas, decide what medium of communication is appropriate for this conversation.
I think oftentimes our choice of communication revolves around urgency and revolves around convenience. And the question that I often try and ask is, how much room for error can this particular question or discussion have? And how quickly do I need a response? And how clear can I be? And if I can't be clear enough with a text message, then I need to level that up one level, to maybe a phone call. And being as though body language is so incredibly important, and this is something that we're trying to model for our kids as well, is take the opportunities to do things in person. There's oftentimes I will go and I will visit with a landlord, and I will go physically visit with them face to face, and a couple of our kids will be along, and they said, "Dad, why couldn't you just have that phone conversation?" And I said, this was too important. This was too valuable. And even if it wouldn't have needed to be a in-person, there was appreciation on my part and on their part in order for that to happen. And if we really want to build relationships, which is a part of our schools that we have put a lot of focus on, is how to not only communicate, but what's the purpose of communication? It's to build relationships with the people you're communicating with. And by doing that, which method, like you said, do we need to use in terms of communicating with other people?
I think it can also have there's definite links and correlations with the financial and success piece of this, because in our case, Joshua was just at the sale barn. Was it just yesterday or the day
The
before?
last 2 days, yeah.
Selling our cattle. And it was really important to us for some of our family, Joshua and some of our kids, to be there in person and to have an appropriate body language. We call it being in the zone. That's something that we've done a training with our friend and coach, Bob Palmer. But being in the zone, it's getting your body in a power pose and really aligned posture, and just that's where the mirror neurons are coming into play, like we talked about the last time, Clay. So we're sending a message of positivity and of assertiveness, and we definitely believe that helped play a role in how well our cattle sold at the sale barn. Us physically being there and being in a zone type, proper posture setting.
So much of this just honestly, I think, revolves around what kind of presence are you bringing to that space? And if it's a presence of needing to be in a leadership role, or if it's the presence of needing to be just a good listener, if it's the presence around animals, or if it's around people, or it's around peers, or it's around kids, that particular presence just means an awful lot. There are people that I tend to be drawn to, and there's people that honestly kind of repel me. But you see, I'm just as guilty of that as anybody. There are times where I'm in a place where I think I actually can draw people to me. And there are other times where I am in such a no-zone place that I am positive that I am repelling people. And these are the types of conversations that Tara and I have on a regular basis. And especially when we're asking people to participate in activities and learn during our schools, our presence is a big, big deal.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that, again, sometimes, especially for me as a Christian, and you guys as well, I'm sure, I get nervous when I start to hear things like this, because there's a lot of, honestly, there's a revival of paganism in our world, and I think that we hear things like this, and then people say, "Oh, well, we're manipulating the universe with our thoughts and our words and all of those things." And I don't think that's what it is. Actually, what I think it is I'm here and I am not detracting from somebody's desire to buy my calves with my posture. I'm not detracting from somebody's desire to do business with me from my posture. And so I think that I think, as we talked about, in the course of our last conversation, God made us as whole beings, right? We are whole beings, and so all of those pieces play a role in, how do we feel? Like, do I feel terrible? Is my posture contributing to that? Is my frame of mind, or the things that I'm focusing on, contributing to the way that I'm feeling and the way that I am, just from a, attitude perspective, feeling? And I think those are all just signs to me that God made us as whole beings, and that if we are ignoring part of our body, if we're ignoring part of who we are, we're going to miss out on what can be the positive benefits of paying attention to the whole person.
Yes.
I think that's a very good point, Clay, about identifying that this isn't about trying to go above someone else or manipulate in such a way. And I actually just had a conversation with another gentleman last night that we so much oftentimes self-sabotage our own situations, even if it's unintentional. And oftentimes we don't even realize that we're doing it. So it's not about trying to do something that would, go outside of the will of God for us, or within the confines of how the Holy Spirit, moves us forward and influences us. It's more about how are we letting the devil jump in there and do something, have his way with us in such a way that we are self-sabotaging our own situations, rather than letting them be free and clear of that, so that, like you said, as whole beings, we can participate in this to the level that I think God wants us to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the Bible tells us who we are in Christ, and we are loved unconditionally. And we fully believe that our behaviors and who we are as people are two completely separate things. We are loved unconditionally as people because we were created in the image of God. All of our behaviors are choices. And so we are choosing what to do with our behaviors. And as we teach our kids, we are each responsible for our behaviors, and we reap the benefits of our behaviors, and we also reap the consequences of our behaviors. And that's where, repentance comes into play, and asking for forgiveness and forgiving ourselves comes into play. We can always change our behaviors. We can always adjust our posture. We can always correct our tone. And through all of that, those are all behaviors that we can change, we can fix, we can improve. Who we are as people in the image of God is priceless and perfect, and we are loved unconditionally by our Creator, is what we believe.
Mhm.
And that's what the message we want to send to others. And in doing this, absolutely, we started the Win Warriors group because we believe that when one of us wins, we all win. And for us personally, it's for the glory of God and his kingdom and his will for us. And what's right for me and what I should be doing is different from what's right for Joshua and what he should be doing according to what we pray for, God's will for discernment for what he would have us do. We are all hands and feet of Christ, and he will use us in different ways. It's us learning how to be mindful of that.
And in applying these ideas to the conference season where we started this conversation, that kind of I think how the connection that I'm hearing is how you show up and how you interact is going to determine on some level the benefits that you reap from conferences and in-person whatever activities that you're going to. Is that where you're going with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So even if Jesus is not your Lord and Savior right now, the way he is for us, no doubt was Jesus a tremendous leader. He met people's basic needs. He spoke into their hearts and minds. He used stories that they could relate to. He called them to fix whatever needed fixing. And, Jesus sat with people. He got to know them. So we want to model that as we interact with people. We want to share meals with people, and we want to get to know them. And usually then they feel comfortable with us, and they will let us know, hey, these are some of the things that I'm struggling with. And so we can talk about some of those solution seeking opportunities to, okay, what are some options that we could consider? Who is in your circle who could help you? Who could we bring in that could provide some additional support? So we really want to bring this kind of solution seeking mindset into the conversations.
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, Farming Without the Bank. None of you are farming like you did 100 years ago. Why are you financing it like you did 100 years ago? The biggest part of your operation is the money that runs through your hands, and you let someone else control that. The bank gets the final say in what you get money for and when you pay it back. For many, this is a great relationship, until it's not. Farming Without the Bank shows you how you can take back control of your money so that you can make the bank plan B instead of plan A. This is done by you creating your own banking system you own and control. To learn more, tune into the Farming Without the Bank podcast and go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book. Once you've read the book, Mary Jo will meet with you one-on-one and help you determine where and how to get started. She'll most likely also touch base on some estate transition ideas, financing ideas, business growth or startup ideas, and many other things she has experience with from helping thousands of farmers and ranchers like you. So go to farmingwithoutthebank.com to get the book today and subscribe to the Farming Without the Bank podcast.
So that brings us to upcoming, right around the corner. We got to know the people from EMRA, and that is the Eastern Montana Regenerative Agriculture. If you are anywhere near Eastern Montana, I highly recommend, and I'm sure, Clay, you will give them the way to contact them. I've got their website right in front of me. It's EMRA, EMRA group, GROUP.org. That's how you can connect with them. And if you want to go to their events page, you'll be able to pull up. They've asked us to be a part of their winter workshop. So you are invited to join both January 13th and January 14th of 2025. On the 13th, they are going to have their annual workshop, and then they are bringing in a speaker that is going to be helping their organization tell their story. We all connect to stories. And so I'm so excited to see what this entails. But if you want to join and be a part of that, you get to watch the group form their story. And then participants are also invited to tell their own story. So for us, why does Seek First Ranch exist? Who do we serve? And how do we serve them? Working Cows podcast. Who do you serve and how can you serve them? What's your story? We all have our stories. It's really choosing how we articulate that. So if somebody asks, hey, what is Working Cows podcast? You'd be able to tell them what you do, why you do it, who you serve. And same for us at Seek First Ranch. So to the listeners, if you'd like to be a part of writing your own story, we highly encourage that you do that because people connect with you on a deeper level when you can tell your story in a concise format, right? You can do that in 30 seconds. You can do that in 90 seconds, maybe 3 minutes. It just depends on how much time you have with that person. And then the other part of that conference then is the next day. We have a full day. We get to spend with participants all day, January 14th. It is called Level Up Your Leadership and Communication. And I will tell you some of the highlights of what we're going to be talking about. So it's going to be a very interactive discussion because, again, we want to sit with people. We want to get to know you and what's on your mind and how we can serve you. They asked us to speak about some of the things that are most common with communication gaps. So some of those things are how to avoid the most common communication pitfalls, both spoken and silent. Like we talked about those messages that we're sending when our feet are not pointed toward the person and they should be, the body language that we're sending, like, am I drawing people toward me or am I repelling them? We're going to be talking about how to meet your team's needs, especially when opinions are opposites. Joshua and I teach a concept called why not to compromise. And we'll talk about that during the day, with the Emmer group on January 14th. So what do you do when you have like two people who are their opinions, they want something totally different and there's not a way to compromise that? What do you do and how do you do that? We are going to be talking about the whole multi-generational experience. On our ranch here at Seek First Ranch, we have the privilege and the challenge of working with 3 generations. And there are some blessings and there are some things that we really need to, and you've got generation gaps and Joshua's, his parents' generation his dad's willing to try anything and they're willing to just, they just show up on your doorstep unannounced and, different generations are like, definitely call first. So it's just, how do you navigate those little things where you unintentionally rub each other the wrong way? So how do you have those kind of multi-generational conversations, especially with big things like succession planning? And how do you have the conversation when maybe the oldest, wisest generation is still holding on to a lot of the decision-making power, and maybe there's a struggle for some of the younger generations to step up or step into those roles? How do you have some of those conversations so that everybody transitions smoothly into whatever their next step is? How do you add clarity to that? How do you start those conversations? How do you have those conversations so that there isn't defensiveness?
And how does everybody leave the conversation believing that their voice was heard and that they have value that they contribute, regardless of their age, regardless of their role, regardless whether they're phasing in, phasing out, changing context, and just how important it is that everybody has an outcome that they've identified and that they also believe can be achieved, and how do you work together as a team then to make that happen?
Right. And because we know that, speaking of defensiveness, we know that not everybody loves to just be told what to do and how to do it, especially if you haven't really met the speaker, or you don't have a relationship with them. So Joshua and I find that it works best to do interactive activities where people have the privilege of getting to form their own aha moments, we call them, or light bulb moments, when they start to realize like, oh, I didn't realize I sound like that, or I didn't realize that I have such a lack of patience, or I didn't realize that I was really micromanaging because it's faster if I just do it myself. I won't take the time to explain this. You're not getting it right away, and our tone and our energy. You heard me just in that last little snippet. It's so easy for us. I know it's so easy for me to go down that slippery slope of, I'll just do this myself. It'll be easier. It'll be faster. I can fix the fence faster. I can load the dishwasher better. I'll just do it myself. And we're really robbing the people that we're around of the kind of leadership that shows them, okay, this is a safe space to try this out. And I'm going to calm my tone and adjust my body language where you could learn from me and where you could receive this information. So we have this activity that our kids actually designed for us, and it uses their Legos. Now we have had to invest in some more Legos because their sets just weren't enough. So we have an activity that we do, and I don't want to give away too much, but we form teams, and it is an interactive activity. And I will say that through that, people absolutely, like I was saying, they have their own aha moments about how they communicate. And then they can call themselves out on it and recognize it, which is, it doesn't leave that sour taste in someone's mouth where somebody else points out their faults, especially in front of a group.
It's so much more powerful to have self-discovery. Yeah. And then be able to take, and then much easier to take ownership of it.
Yes. Okay. So I have to tell you this. Joshua and I have had an opportunity to facilitate this. We call it Legos Leadership and Legacy. Did I say that right? Legos Leadership and Legacy is what we call it. And we've had an opportunity to facilitate it. But to be very honest, I had not actually had a chance to participate in it until our last school, which was in South Dakota. And we had an odd number. So one team was short a person. And so I jumped in, and I tell you what, my team member was so patient and so calm, and his body language alone helped me sound like I was holding it together, even though inside I felt like I wanted to pull my own hair out because I could not figure out how to explain this one concept any better than I was. And I was absolutely losing my patience, but he was calm and I knew what my assignment was. And I'm like, I only have to do this for a few more minutes. I can do this. I can handle it. It allowed me to realize, again, what my tone was and how I was feeling. And I still remember exactly what that felt like. And I'll tell you, on the drive home from that workshop, I was driving home and I wanted to listen to a podcast on my phone, but I needed it to be, plugged in, and Joshua had to. So I'm driving, and in my mind, I wanted to say, no, I'll just do it myself, because you have to click here and find this and log in and find the password. And I don't know what that is. And there was 18 steps to it. And I remembered exactly what it felt like to be sitting next to my partner and giving instructions and an explanation to the other team. And I was like, you know what? If I can do that for them, why can't I give my own husband, who I love more than anyone on earth, why can't I give him that same level of patience to speak and articulate step by step with intention in a tone that would be pleasing and would come across in the way that I really want it to improve our relationship, not hinder it? So how can we get better results with our communication style, with our tone, and with our body language? Because we all truly value each other. And I don't think we mean to cut each other off or hurt somebody else's feelings. We just have bad habits in place where we're not bringing our own tone and our own body language and our own shortness of temper to the surface. We're not recognizing it, and we're not adjusting it unless it's called to our attention.
Yeah, very good. So January 13th and 14th, the communications workshop is on the 14th in Miles City, Montana. Links for that will be in the show notes page for today, workingcows.net/401. Workingcows.net/401 is the show notes page for today, and you can go there and get registered and join that great group. Become a very active group over the last couple of years, and doing some great work up there in eastern Montana. So encourage everybody who's within reasonable distance, and maybe even some unreasonable distances, to travel if you can. And sounds like a worthwhile opportunity. One of the things that I've been thinking about lately is, as a pastor, like one of my jobs is to go visit, to shepherd, right? To be that pastor is a shepherding term, right? And 9 times out of 10, I can talk myself out of a visitation because it's going to be awkward for the other person, which we can talk about what that says or whatever at another time. But I think we just have to get used to having intentional and awkward conversations. And if you feel that resistance because, it's going to be awkward, that's probably a good sign that something needs to be done there. You need to go follow through with that. Is that true in your experience?
I think so. That's one of the indicators that if there is conflict or awkwardness, or it shifts either them or us or maybe both into an area of discomfort, not within our comfort zone, it's probably because we're not trying to dream up stuff to do. It probably is because it's a conversation that needs to happen. And I think, this is just my opinion, but I think in our society today, because of all the different communication methods that we have, we oftentimes maybe choose the one that does not put us face to face, toe to toe. And I don't mean that from an argumentative or fighting standpoint, but from a purely genuine, authentic, this is meaningful to me, and I hope it's meaningful to you. That's why I want to have the conversation in person, and probably indicates that it needs to happen, just overall. It might be simply a miscommunication, and that's a type of conversation that sorts itself out really quickly. We've had those situations. Or we've had the other end of the spectrum where there is actually some pretty deep resentment or conflict or issue, and unless we start the conversation somewhere, we never uncover that, and it just festers for a long time, and we never truly resolve it. And especially on our triple generation operation here, we've had a few of those situations, and we have worked really hard, and not saying we've always gotten it right, but we've worked really, really hard to make sure that we are communicating as frequently as we need to, as much in person as we think is necessary, and even err on the side of being conservative about that. Let's do it in person if we're not sure. And getting those things to float to the surface, because oftentimes many of those things, if they float to the surface early on, they're more easily solved and reconciled. Whereas if they sit and just kind of, at a melting point for a long time, when they do finally surface, oh boy, it can be something pretty significant, and it maybe didn't need to be.
Yeah. Sometimes those small offenses at first, they become the seed for a bunch of other things to get attached to it that, and then it becomes a big issue that actually does boil over, and it was just a small offense at first. And if we kept short accounts and, don't let the sun go down your anger and some of those other things, wisdom from the scriptures, if we did those things, then we would be able to avoid some of the bigger messes later on, for sure.
Yep.
So, okay, earlier we both, I think, have mentioned at this point mirror neurons. I would like to spend just a minute on that idea, or a couple of minutes on that idea, and talk about that before we talk a little bit more about the Win Warriors accountability group.
Yes, and before I forget to mention it, and the people who are so impacted and influenced by our mirror neurons is children, especially children 5 and under. Mm-hmm. They are absolutely functioning at genius level. They are absorbing so much information. They are picking up on body language. Remember, you think about infants, young kids, newborns, before they're verbal, all of their communication is nonverbal. You have to interpret what their cry means, or what their little, their fit means, or what they're communicating with you through their body language and through their different vocal tones. Children are absolutely soaking up on so much of it, and that sets what they believe about themselves and what they believe about their environments for the rest of their life. And it's really setting their habits. So we're going to come back to that, but because I don't want to forget to mention this, I want to jump back to what I love about the EMRA group, the Eastern Montana Regenerative Ag. When they contacted us, they said full out, we know we want to talk about communication. Like they didn't dance around it. They're like, we know that this is a weak link and we know that we want to talk about it. They also fully believe in all ages and all stages, just like we do. So youth are absolutely invited to this event. So you can bring children of all ages. Kids 12 and under is completely free to attend along with a parent. And they have special youth pricing for kids who are 13 on up. So I just wanted to mention that. So yes, with mirror neurons, we're sending a signal to people, and we end up mirroring that. So, I think the last time I might have mentioned, I used to teach in a middle school classroom. And I know that when I walked into that room, my facial expressions, my body language, my mood absolutely set the tone for how that 90 minutes when I had with that room full of 7th and 8th graders, that set the tone for how it was going to go. And it had a major impact on the amount of behavioral issues I was going to see, on my rapport with them to get them, because I can't force an 8th grader to write, but my body language and the mirror neurons that I'm sending them can help encourage them to want to do it. They have to want to. So again, I want to be clear about this. This is not manipulation. That is not the intention of it. It's simply on a psychological basis. We all have mirror neurons and we tend to mirror each other. So if you are in front of a leader who is giving off these vibes of like feeling very stressed, and the tone is very stressed and it's very scattered and you start to take on that anxiety on a deep subconscious level. You might be conscious of it, but on a subconscious level, you are absolutely picking up on anxiety. You're picking up on the good and you're picking up on the bad. So one of our mentors told us a long time ago, he said, if I wouldn't need to meet your children to know if they struggle with anxiety or not, because if they struggle with anxiety, it's because it's learned behavior, and likely the parent, whoever raises them and is spending the most time influencing them, parents, teachers, caregivers. If you have a child with anxiety, one of our mental health advisors and mentors told us it is because that behavior is being modeled for them. Their living environment, their learning environment is filled with anxiety, and they're picking up those things and they're projecting it right back out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very true. And then I think that the mirror neurons, or, your whatever energy or, attitude you're putting out there, people, like you were saying with the kids, when you walked into that room, I remember the teachers that we enjoyed their class because they were enjoying their class, and the ones that we didn't enjoy were probably because they weren't really enjoying their class, and so I think those things, we can see those things, we just can't put our finger on what's going on there sometimes, but it becomes pretty clear. What are some of the tactics or some of the ways that we can make sure that we are putting out good, energy or whatever, however we want to talk about these things? What are some of the ways or tactics or things that we should pay attention to? You talked about having your feet pointed in the direction of the person you're talking to. That's huge. That makes so much sense. Are there things like that in this regard as well?
Yes, it's going to sound simple, but yet it's profound, and I don't want people to miss this. Quality sleep is so important. Even more important for women than it is for men. It is important for everybody, but I don't want I want everyone to hear this. Women need more sleep than men, especially women who are cycling, because our bodies, our hormones are totally regulated by sleep, and we can't get that same kind of regulation any other way. And our hormones impact our mood, and that impacts our behaviors. And so it is so important to be getting enough quality sleep. I think that's huge. Of course, diet is important, self-care kinds of things, absolutely. For us, what is the most benefit because of those mirror neurons? Surround yourself with warriors, people who want to see you succeed, people who you look to for encouragement, for advice, who can listen to you, if you're struggling with something, but then don't just, have that downward spiral of, womp womp commiseration. And I also want to be clear here. I mean, there is mental health care, whatever that looks like, by a hired professional as needed, absolutely. But in addition to that, to support this belief of how do we support positive psychology? How do we build resilience? How do we? And it's really surrounding ourselves with conversations and with people and the energy that they give off that is positive and encouraging and is safe. So we know that because some people, in the rural communities, people who are in this regenerative egg space can sometimes feel isolated. And we really want we don't want that for people, especially, and we talked about too, like sometimes you go to the conferences and you're around all these people and you haven't seen them in a year. And this is the annual event and you get to see these great conversations and how's it going? And the energy is so high and you listen to these speakers who give you, oh, and I want to do that. So in your mind, you're formulating, oh, and when I get home, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do a better job of this. And this is the year that I'm going to get all of my financial situation figured out month to month and not just wait until tax season. This is going to be the year and then you get home from that conference after that conference high, we call it. And then, your normal and usual happens. Like once in a while, we come back from those and like, oh, okay, we get hit with some kind of illness. And then that sets us back. Or, like the tractor breaks down, or there's a weather event, or some of these things. And what we noticed for ourselves and what we saw in some of our clients and school participants was that gap of the conference high and all those things you think you're going to do, the expectations of that, when it doesn't meet your reality of when you come home, it can feel doubly defeating for people. And so when we realize like, okay, like that, we love conference season. We love getting to see people, meet new people and see the people that we get to see every year at that annual event that we look forward to. We don't want to experience that conference crash ourselves. And we don't want our friends and our colleagues to experience that either. So we started what we're calling the Win Warriors, and it is an accountability group. And it is based on that phrase that goes something like, sit at the table with warriors. The conversations are different. And we've all been at tables where it was a commiseration station. And it's easy to commiserate and complain about weather and who has it worse with calving season or lambing season, or whose household is sicker and has been hit with this. And it's so easy to get pulled into that negative direction. And I'm not saying don't discuss those things. And if you're really struggling with something, absolutely reach out to a health professional. And if you need those kinds of resources, we can get those to you. To help maintain that everyday support that I think everybody needs, the Win Warriors Accountability Group, we're going to start up in January. So if you want information on that, you can contact me or you can go right to our website. It's seekfirstranch.com. You will see a button on that page that prompts you to join the Win Warriors, or you can go to seekfirstranch.com/leadership if you want to jump right to the page. So some of the details are on there, but what it's going to look like is not only are we each going to be setting our own goals, and they can be personal or professional, anything that you feel comfortable sharing with your small group, and I'll be a part of that group. So you get to share your goals. It could be something as simple as organizing your sock drawer. It could be ranch related if you're a rancher, with something that you want to do with your financial plan or work on your grazing plan, or maybe, fix the water in the sheep's water in the tank, whatever that looks like. For maybe you want to set up a bale grazing situation for your cows, whatever goal you want to set for yourself. It needs to be a tangible goal that you want to set for the week. You can set as many as you want to. Again, we work together to make sure that the goals are tangible. Some of us have a chronic habit of biting off more than we can chew. So it's setting tangible goals. We find that oftentimes they'll set goals and it'll be something like, oh, I want to completely revise our whole grazing plan and I want to re-roof the barn and they're setting themselves up for disappointment and failure because you can't accomplish all of that in a week, right? So we want to help people set actual tangible goals, even if they start off with being something really small. And then what we do as a group is we celebrate each other's wins. So we're not just celebrating our own accomplishments, we're celebrating as a group. So when Joshua does the thing he says he was going to do, we all celebrate and congratulate him. And then we get those mirror neurons and those we get those hits of endorphins. I mean, this is scientific. Like, God designed us. We get rewarded when we accomplish things. And so this is a way for us not only to get those helpful and beneficial and healthy endorphins flowing through our own bodies when we accomplish things, when we celebrate with other people. This is why we want everybody to win. This isn't a competition. It's not you have to lose so I can win. This is you win and you get endorphins. And when I celebrate with you, I get those endorphins too. And it helps us build a bond. And so part of this Win Warriors group, we're going to be meeting twice a month on Zoom so we can see each other face to face. We know how important that is. And we can hear tone and listen and see people's body language. If you can't join us on the Zooms when they're live, I will record them and send them to you. And then on a weekly basis, we'll have a chat format where, like I said, everybody sets their tangible goals. If you have a question or opportunity that you're wrestling with or a problem that you'd like some feedback from the group, we'll create some time to be able to discuss that. And then the next week, we all reflect on our commitments and then we celebrate those wins together.
Yeah, so much power there just in the realm of focus, right? I mean, this is what we're focused on here for this week. This is what we're going to shoot at doing. And 9 times out of 10, when those things get written down and focused on a daily basis, they get accomplished, right? I mean, that's just kind of the way that works. And then the other piece of that is you mentioned, this isn't just about you as an individual. Well, it becomes obvious that it's not, because 9/10 of the time is going to be spent on other people's goals. If there's 10 people in the group, you get 1/10 of that time, and then the other people's goals get 9/10, and there's learning that happens there as well for you. Like, oh, that's their goal. I didn't even know that should be a goal, but maybe in a couple of weeks after I've got my goals finished, that can be one of my goals. So I think that it is a pretty powerful format.
Oh, yeah. And oftentimes, too, we find that there's somebody I need to do that, too. And somebody else has already done a bunch of research on it. And then not that eliminates you from needing to do your own research. Of course, we're all responsible for our own choices. But sometimes, too, that brain power of the group, if somebody else has gathered a bunch of information and they're willing to share, that saves you a ton of time.
And I think we noticed, as Tara had mentioned earlier, the energy that you get during conference season, and then this potential crash that happens when you go back into your reality, there's such a huge gap there, and it has been for us as well. We have these high expectations, we have all these ideas, we're so excited, and then by the time the next conference season rolls around, we're like, what the heck happened? Why did we not get near as much done as we wanted? And I think it's because we're not necessarily set up for success, and we do these things that sabotage our ability to complete those sorts of things. So that gap was much bigger. Our observation is that it has been much bigger than we ever thought it was, or ever thought it could be. And this team concept I want to share just a real quick story about how powerful that is. I think most of us can rally around the idea that community is important. Even if we're the farmer rancher type and we're introverted and we kind of like to do our own thing and have our own space, I think we understand personalities, but we also understand how valuable community is. But I want to go in between those two spaces and talk about the value of team. And in our situation, or in many others, it's at least 2 people. In some cases, it might be just one person on an operation, and they maybe need to surround themselves with team. But oftentimes we have a built-in team, but are we actually utilizing that team the way that we could? And what comes to mind is, over the past few years, one of our sons, he's 11, and he has been in a multitude of different activities. But more recently, in the last 2 or 3 years, he's done jiu-jitsu, he's ran cross country, and now this last year, he's played basketball for the first time. Well, in jiu-jitsu, it's kind of an individual deal. Okay. And so he's driven and he works hard and he practices and he's had some success there. But when all is said and done at the end of the day, it was an individual accomplishment. So he's accountable to himself. Okay, he runs cross country. He did that this last fall. In that deal there, although you accumulate times and therefore you have a team time, but when you're actually doing the activity, it is him by himself and he is accountable to himself. Now, there are some people out there that are very good at being very accountable to themselves. But I asked him this after playing basketball this last winter. I said, Jameson, I said, so how did things go over the past few months with sports? And he's like, well, Dad, I think I have a new favorite sport. And I can tell you it's not the one that he's the most accomplished in. But he said, Dad, he said, I think it's basketball. And I said, why do you say basketball is your favorite sport? He said, well, it's a challenge, it's new skills. I enjoyed all this, but he said, you know what? He said, it's the only sport I've played where I have a team. And he said, I don't want to let the others down, and they don't want to let me down. And guess what happens when we lose? We lose together. But he said the best part is he said when we win, he's like, all of us celebrate. And these sixth grade boys, I mean, they celebrate like crazy. They get so excited about even some of the small things, the simple things. But to see their personalities come alive because they were part of a team. And I really think that's the concept here is how often do we celebrate even some of the most basic things that we accomplish on the ranch or on the farm? I think it's just the expectation that we're just going to get this done and check the box and then move on. And there's not a lot of celebration that comes with it. This is why people in our area love going to brandings, right? Is because at the end of the day, it's such a social gathering of celebrating culture and people and community. But there's so much more that we do as farmers and ranchers that doesn't necessarily get celebrated within our own teams. And it brings me back to one last example I'd like to give on the mirror neurons. And this is something that I have really, really struggled with. And it's when I come in at the end of the day and I walk in the house, and let's even use this time of year. It was cold out. I came in, it was already dark. There was hard work involved. Things probably didn't go quite according to plan. And there was a water tank that froze up and the tractor didn't start or all of those things. Well, I come in the door and I can tell, and I'm starting to pay attention to this. Do I have the attitude of, hey, guess what I had to go through today? Guess what I had to sacrifice? And guess how hard I had it today? And guess how many people come running towards me when I have that feeling? Everybody scatters. Everybody hides. And Tara
my feet are not pointed in his direction. I can tell you that.
Absolutely not. But when I come in the door, even if all of the same things happen, but I come in the door as, hey, I chose this. I didn't have to do this. This is the career and the occupation that I chose. This is how I chose to raise my family. This is where we chose to live. And if I have that attitude of I chose this, not instead of the victim mentality of I have to do this and I conquered today. No, it didn't go all according to plan for sure, but I conquered today. My gosh, the reaction that I get from the rest of my family, and how often do I walk into a room, whether it's a meeting or it's church or it's anything else or a conference that we're going to speak in, and do I have this, I chose this, I conquered this, I'm excited for this, or my gosh, I have to be here and today was not very good. And we're going to have not very good days, right? That this is just a part of life. But how do we exhibit body language and tone in reference to that, I think makes a huge difference. And therefore, the transfer of mirror neurons to the people that I care about most, I need to work on that at a much higher degree than I have.
As a wife, I also, the same. He comes in the door. If I'm already in the house, he doesn't need to hear about everything that went wrong and all the battles that the disagreements and the arguments that I settled and how do we meet each other at the door? And I think that's something so with any relationship, but when marriage success rates continue to drop, for any married couple out there, I would encourage you, how are you greeting your spouse at the door? Where are your feet pointed and what kind of words come out of your mouth? There's a time and a place for support, but venting really, really is a self-sabotaging and a relation sabotaging process. And so we are working to avoid that and choose something different.
Or at least not stop the conversation there. If venting becomes a part of it, fine, we'll go there, but there needs to be another layer, a solution-seeking layer on the other side of that, in order to leave things in a positive space. Like you said, biblically, you don't go to bed mad. You go to bed with some peace about solutions on the horizon, even if you can't achieve them necessarily today. And so much of what we share and what we facilitate is not because we have all the answers, but we just believe these things to be so incredibly important. And oftentimes people just need someone to lead the conversation, not necessarily have all the answers, but lead the conversation and facilitate the conversation. And I'm positive that in your line of work, Clay, there's lots of incidences where or opportunities to do that exact thing where you don't need the answers. They maybe absolutely can come to the answers, but they need a process to be able to get there.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for the sermon I preach on marriage or raising children to a group of people who are younger and less experienced than me in that regard. So it hasn't happened yet. Every time I preach on marriage or raising children, just because it's what came up in the passage, the people I'm preaching to are all older than me and have more experience than me. So I definitely identify with that. But what you're talking about is this warrior mentality, right? Like the difference between I have to and I get to. Right. Uh-huh. And then also just that idea of the warrior. This is a battle and I'm fighting it. I'm moving towards an objective and I'm accomplishing goals and I'm having victories and these kinds of things, rather than the victim mentality that you mentioned earlier. And it occurred to me recently in the course of preparing for a sermon that the victim mentality and narcissism are actually really closely related. Narcissism is, it's all about me, everyone should love me. And the victim mentality is, it's all about me, everyone hates me. And they start the same place, they just finish the sentence differently. And so I think that we need to recognize that when we start to get internally focused or focused on ourselves, that it can be narcissism or the victim mentality, and we need to just stop there and change our focus, point our feet in the direction of the people that we care about most, and actually have a conversation with them and celebrate the things that we did get to do and the victories that we did have that day. So I think that's really helpful.
Yes.
Very good. I really appreciate your time today. Really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you. As I said, links to the Eastern Montana Regenerative Agriculture Group's workshop will be there in the show notes page, as well as links to your website and the Win Warriors group, and encourage people to take advantage of those resources. So anything else that we missed?
I do have a couple bonuses.
All right.
So right now we have a promotion going on. So if you use the coupon code WIN, WIN, this is a 3-month commitment. So if you're interested in joining the Win Warriors, it's a 3-month commitment, January, February, and March. Right now, we have 3 months for the price of one. So if you use coupon code WIN, WIN, you can get 3 months for the price of one. And then just for your listeners, I have an additional bonus. I am a John Maxwell certified team member, and I have 5 hardcover copies of his latest book. It is called The High Road Leader, High Road Leadership. That's the name of the book, John C. Maxwell, High Road Leadership. I have 5 hardcover copies that I would love. It's conference season coming up, but we're also in the Christmas season. And not everybody listens to this live, but right now as we're recording this, we are in the Christmas season and it's a season of giving. So I would love to gift those 5 copies out to the first 5 people who join the Win Warriors group. If you have any questions at all, I am absolutely happy to answer those. But if you are one of the first 5 people to commit, I will mail that book to you.
Very good. Yep. And we, as I said, links to all that in the show notes page, and go there and take advantage of the resources. So Joshua, Tara, thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
Very good stuff there, as always, with Joshua and Tara. Really appreciate them taking the time to join me and share some of what they've been learning about, some of the deeper side of these issues of communication and leveling that up. And as I said, if you're interested in the Eastern Montana Regenerative Agriculture Group's annual meeting and the workshop that Joshua and Tara will be doing, links to that will be in the show notes page for today at workingcows.net/401. Very excited to kick off the new year with a repeat guest from the Understanding Ag crew. Looking forward to continuing the partnership with them even at a higher level next year, 2025, Lord willing, than we have in previous years. And so much of thanks to all the sponsors. If you're in the need of any of the services that they offer, go check them out. And if you are a purveyor of fine agricultural products and services, there's a few spots left as of the release of this episode that you could get in on being an advertiser for 2025. Just about 10 spots left for 2025. So if you're interested, go ahead and shoot me an email and let me know, and we'll get you in for getting the word out about what you're up to with your services or products for ranchers and farmers alike. So very much appreciate it. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Thank you guys for all of your attention over the years, and looking forward to best year yet on the Working Cows podcast. We'll see you again real soon with another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.